Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got Donald Trump once again, kind of, sort of, trolling Canada, adding them as a potential state. I'm going to tell everyone the dynamic on what's really going on with Trump putting pressure on Canada. We're going to take a look at some of the past elections comparing 2016 to 2024. But first, we're taking a look at Trump. Truth Social, 3 a.m. He's got a very similar sleep schedule to me, but he says, no one can answer why we subsidize Canada to the tune of over $100 million a year. He's talking about the trade deficit, the United States buying a bunch of stuff from Canada and examining the dynamic within that. I know a lot of people are confused. Why is he talking about subsidized things like that? It's just the fact that the United States buys so much from Canada, and the idea would be, for lack of a better term, why don't we just rip Canada off based off of our military leverage over them, and also the location of Canada directly to our north? If you're not gonna invade them, but if we were to invade them, it would be a very, you would figure, easy takeover. They always talk about the United States struggling in wars. Yeah, wars thousands of miles away. It's a little bit different when you're traveling north, and you're able to invade a land from your own land. It's a lot easier to do something like that. And I'm not saying to do that, but I'm just saying Trump is understanding. I think this all relates to the 2026 renegotiation, the U.S., Mexico, Canada trade agreement. Trump trying to get the United States a much better trade deal. And it's just like, I mean, we could do a trade deal with Canada, but we should be buying oil for pennies on the dollar. What is Canada really going to say about it? We could say, listen, you're either going to accept these terms, or it's going to be a big problem for you with how big our military is, and there's going to be serious issues. And so I think that's really what Trump is pushing for. It's like, why not just rip them off? I mean, you could say, well, it's not fair, but is it really fair that American taxpayers are paying as much as they are, but we're really not using the military to our advantage? And it's really just military leverage. You're not talking about an actual invasion or anything like that. But the dynamic of this and the Trump threats against Canada come to the United States getting a much better trade deal and getting a lot of the resources in Canada for pennies on the dollar, because the United States is so much stronger than Canada. Why would we have a fair agreement with them when we are such a military might and we're located right next to them? Wouldn't we want to take advantage of them? And that's more of Trump's thinking. Trump says it makes no sense. Many Canadians want Canada to become the 51st state. I did see a poll on that. It was around like 19% of Canadians I saw would be okay with Canada joining the United States. But it is kind of funny. Like, Trump is actually trying to like reason and say this is why it would be good. As the 51st state, we're not going to do that, because then you're talking about liberals possibly voting stuff. You want to add them as a territory. You get all the natural resources, but you don't allow them to vote. You give them a puppet government, but you don't want those people voting. They're all liberal. And the conservative ones, I think the conservative ones like Trump. I mean, even you take a look at what they've got like their election coming up in 2025, and it's almost like a more conservative populist style that they're going for, with the Conservative Party at around 50%, the two liberal fractions lower, and with Trudeau in total mess. They hate Trudeau, part of the main liberal party there in Canada, possibly stepping down. They would save massively on taxes and military protection. Well, Canada kind of already views the United States as giving them full military protection. Remember the game Fallout? I mean, World War III happens in a scenario. The United States might just annex Canada because it would be easier, and Canada would be fine with it. You're talking about World War III. Yes, give us that protection. So it's kind of a funny dynamic. I think it's a great idea. 51st state. Yeah. So I think the dynamic here is trying to get a better trade deal with Canada, saying, look, we have so much leverage over you. I'm going to pressure you. Trump's going to do his joke and whatever, but this is really a pressure tactic to get a better trade deal with Canada. And why should the United States it's not subsidizing, it's a trade deficit, but why should the United States be paying this much for certain natural resources from Canada when we very easily, within the span of a week, could invade your entire country? We're not saying we're going to invade your country, but this is the idea of, why are we not taking advantage of this? You want to be nice, that's fine, but it's Trump, obviously. Trump seems like he's a lot more aggressive this term, and he really has a better foothold on governing the country. And it's not surprising you get 4 years of experience after having no experience running anything. You knew no one in 2016. You've got a bunch of rhinos. The entire Republican Party is full of them, and they're still there in 2024, but there's a lot less and there's a lot bigger sentiment, and the general public has awoken to the idea of these rhinos and the Republicans that really don't represent the current party and how it's swung with the whole MAGA movement. So I think the dynamic here is more pressure on Canada to give us a better trade deal. Why are we paying so much for their natural resources when we very easily could just take their natural resources? We don't want to take their natural, we want to do a trade deal, but we want a better trade deal for the United States. We pay a ton in military, our citizens sacrifice, so we should be getting these resources for cheaper. We should be getting a better trade deal. We should be able to use that money to make our citizens' lives better rather than paying these market standard prices because we want to be nice. And so I think that's what Trump is really saying when it comes to that. You can see Eric Trump, 51st state, hashtag Canada. He's got a little bit of a sleep schedule, I guess. But yeah, so the Trump family doing a little trolling on Canada there. And then this is another thing I wanted to look at. How did each state change from 2016 to 2024? So this is a good comparison because you're comparing Trump's wins and you're seeing how these states shifted. And it is pretty remarkable to see. The ones that really stick out to me, it's California, it's Texas, it's New York, and it's Illinois. It's all the big populations. They're all shifting Republican. California shifted Republican, I think, what was it, by like 3 points or something? Oh, 10 points from 2016. California shifted 10 points total. Florida's 12 points from 2016. That's not surprising, though. I'm sure people expected. Hawaii, believe it or not, a 9-point shift. Iowa, almost a 4-point shift. And Trump won Iowa easily in 2016 when they said it was going to be a swing state. Kansas is shifting liberals. It is. And liberals talk about that all the time. But not to a crazy degree. Illinois shifting to the right by 6 points. What is this? Missouri shifting to the right. I mean, that's Nevada shifting to the right by 5.5 points. That's a good swing state. New Jersey by 8 points. New York by 10 points. The bigger populated areas. Oregon shifting left by 3 points. I was a little disappointed in Oregon, honestly. But because I thought, if Trump wins a popular vote, you'd think Oregon would be closer, but it really doesn't matter. Either way, the big population centers shifting slowly to the right, which is going to help the Republicans in terms of the popular vote, not necessarily the Electoral College, because they're not winning New York or California anytime soon. Maybe if, let's say, Vance performs within 6 or 7 points. I mean, the one state with kind of a higher population, well, it's not a high population, but it's kind of like a mid-population that you could say with a crazy shift from 2016 to 2024 that could go Republican in 2028, it'd be New Jersey. New Jersey with like a 10-point shift. Now it's around 5 or 6 points difference. Republicans ramping up efforts in that state. That is one I could see shifting for sure. Georgia is slightly moving to the left, especially since 2016. But even in 2024, you look at the comparison, Georgia's a state to watch, maybe even more so than North Carolina. Republicans might be able to keep North Carolina but lose Georgia. And then you'd be looking at Arizona and Nevada, especially Arizona being a more Republican lean in exchange for that. But if you lose Georgia, the 16 electoral votes, you want Arizona, you want Nevada. And you'd also love to tidy up Pennsylvania a little bit similar to Ohio, maybe make Pennsylvania a 4 or 5 point win, and you'd be looking at a lot better electoral math while also keeping Texas and Florida, your two big dogs, in terms of the electoral votes. Very safe. So there is that. And then we also do have a job approval poll by Marquette. They've got Biden's approval rating at 34%. I've seen most have Biden around 40%. He's actually gone up like a point or two since the election, but 34% is crazy bad. Trump's first term approval rating, 53%. Think about how crazy that is. You go back 4 years ago, Biden's approval rating was like plus 13. Trump's was like minus 20. Now Biden's minus 32, Trump's plus 6. That's a difference of 38 total points in terms of approval. That is a crazy, crazy shift. That's a crazy comeback in looking at that. I did see like a Polymarket projection market, would Trump have a positive approval rating when he went into the White House? Because right now his favorability rating is good, but technically it's not an approval rating because he's not president right now. I think he'll start with like a +2, +3 approval rating at least when he goes in. So it is a pretty crazy change, and it's going to come down to that Russia-Ukraine war. If he's able to end that, I understand there's going to be the liberal narrative that he's in bed with Putin and Russia. I don't think people really buy that. I think Trump's approval rating might go to like plus 10, plus 11 if he's able to end that, and Republicans can swing that as Trump saving the world from World War III, and you're off to a great start off the bat. And you really, maybe you don't feel the wrath of the potential tariff problem to where maybe the tariffs initially do hurt a little bit. That's just based off of the long-term prospect of tariffs and trying to bring the manufacturing and the jobs back to the United States. It's very similar to the Canadian situation with energy. We're trying to become energy independent. Why would we rely on Canada for energy? Although that makes more sense than relying on China, of all places, who have said they want to pass the United States in overall economic power by 2015. Relying on Canada makes more sense than relying on China, but you still don't want to rely on either one. You want to be an independent country, especially a country that has as big of as an economy as the United States. It's obviously just a no-brainer. And so I do think Trump is pushing with the tariffs for the United States to become more independently self-sufficient. And that might require, and that's why Musk has said, a little bit of upfront sacrifice. But if you're able to end that war, you could you could set that off, and you could still have a good approval rating if you're Trump, and it just gets you off to a great start. So that'll be the first big thing for Trump. He might go to plus 10, plus 11 in terms of approval if he's able to end that war within the first 2 or 3 months he's in office. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.